Okay, so up until this point, we've been talking about trig with right angles. But the cool thing about trig is that you can actually do it when you don't have right angles as well. And there are two laws, the law of cosine and the law of sine, that can be used to find missing angles and side lengths, being that you are not given a right angle. So if you look at examples 1 and 2, you'll notice there is no right angle indicated in these two triangles. And so in my mind, I'm thinking, okay, I'm not going to be able to use SOHCAHTOA. TOA. I'm going to have to either use the law of sine or the law of cosine. All right, so at the very top, this is packet number 37. You're going to come down here to the bottom of the page, and I want you to draw a squiggly line just like I am, and this is where you're going to take notes for this. So go ahead and draw your squiggly line. So the first thing you have to know is that when you have a triangle that is not a right triangle, but let's call it ACB, okay? All these angles are going to be angles A, B, and C. The first thing you have to know how to do is label your side. So the side across from or opposite A is going to be little a, opposite B is little b, and opposite C is little c. So that's how we label the sides. It has nothing to do with Pythagorean theorem or anything like that. It's just how we label the sides. Okay. So because the first thing we're going to learn is law of cosine. Okay. So the law of cosine is used in two different scenarios. The first scenario is that you have two sides and an included angle. Two sides plus included angle. And what you'll notice on this page, you have, for example, this side here, and the angle is in between the two sides. So all of these are law of cosine because you have two sides and the angle is in between the two sides. One scenario where you will use law of cosine. The second scenario where you will use law of cosine is if all three sides are known. So if I said that this was 9, this was 22, and say this was 17. If we know all three sides, then we can use law of cosines as well. All right, so today we're just going to focus on law of cosines. Tomorrow we'll focus on law of sines. And that's it for trig. Then you'll be ready to move on, and we'll talk about circles next. Okay, so what are the formulas, you ask? Well, first, if you're looking for C, let's say we're looking for this side right here, okay? Then we're going to use C squared equals, so that's this side right here, C squared, you could also call it side AB, equals A squared plus B squared minus 2AB, the cosine, hence where it gets its name from, of angle C. All right? So basically you just plug the numbers into this formula, type it in your calculator, and hit enter. And miraculously you get the answer. If you were looking for side B, which is here, so we can call that side AC, or B squared, is going to equal whatever is not B. So A squared plus C squared minus 2AC times the cosine now of the angle B. And the last one, let's say we wanted to find this side here. So we'll call that side BC, or A squared, is going to be what's not A again. So B squared plus C squared minus 2 BC, the cosine of A. So these are the formulas that you're going to use to find the information. So I just wanted to put this up here for you to make sure that you copy these notes down so you have it on this paper so you can reference it quickly when you're doing your practice problems. Today, you are responsible for numbers 1 through 12. Then you can check into the next video and you'll be responsible for numbers 13 through 24. I will be collecting this entire packet for a grade. Is there still some information you haven't gotten, you can go ahead and pause the video, but I'm going to go ahead and do some example problems for you. Excuse me. So let's go ahead and do number 1. So I'm looking for AC, which is this side here. It is across from angle B, so I'm going to call it little b. This is across from angle C, so I'm going to call it little c. This is across from A, so I'm going to call it little a. So the first step is to label big A and little b and little c. Step 1. Step 2 is to highlight unknown, which we already did. And then step 3, we're just going to plug, choose a formula and plug in. So in this case, I'm looking for B, so I'm going to choose the formula where B squared equals A squared plus C squared minus 2AC, the cosine of, in this case, B, big B. All right, so B squared I don't know, so that remains B squared. And you should be thinking in your mind, oh, it's B squared. So the very last thing I'm going to have to do when I do these problems is take the square root. Okay, A squared is 18 squared plus 23 squared minus 2 times 18 times 23 times the cosine of 92. And literally you hit enter, and hopefully you should arrive at the correct answer. Let's see, I'm going to do 18 squared plus, again, remember you have to be in degrees, minus 2 times 18 times 23 times the cosine of 92. Hit enter, and you should get 881. Then you take the square root of the second answer, and I got 29.7 if I just type it in my calculator like that. So I'm going to hit this and see 29.7 is in fact the answer. You can see it right here. So you can literally just type this in the calculator, exactly how it looks here, hit enter, and then hit the square root. I got 881.8967, whatever. Then hit the square root, and you'll end up with this answer right here. Okay, hold on one second. So let's go ahead and look at another example. And this one we're going to look at has the 3 sides labeled. So once again, if the 3 sides are labeled, you know that it's also going to be a law of cosines. So this would be number 7. So flip through to number 7. Okay, now this time we're trying to find the measure of angle C, which is right here. Okay, so since we're looking for the measure of angle C, we're going to set up the same formula. So the first thing, we're going to label our sides. So this is C, this is A, this is B, and then we're going to choose our formula. So we're looking for C, so we're going to use C squared equals A squared. I gotta look back, make sure I do this right. A squared plus B squared minus 2AB cosine of C. So let's type in what we know. C squared is 18 squared equals 17 squared plus 30 squared minus 2 times 17 times 30 times the cosine of C. So I'm literally going to first type. We need to now see this as 2 different terms. So I see this a term member is separated by plus or minus. So I can solve for this term first in my calculator. And then I'm going to go ahead and solve this part second. Okay? So I do need to get different numbers for these sections. So the first thing I'm going to do is 17 squared plus 30 squared. When I type this into my calculator for the red part, I get 1,189. All right, now I'm going to do the blue part, which is -2 times 17 times 30. Make sure you're hitting the time sign. And I get, for the blue part, I get negative 1,020. And don't forget, it's also attached to the cosine of c, since there's multiplication sign here. So over here, remember, I still have 18 squared. And I believe 18 squared is 324, but let's double check. Sure enough, it's 324. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to have to do is subtract 1189. And I'm going to get a negative, but that's okay at this point. So 324 minus 1189 equals negative 865. And this equals negative 1020 times the cosine of c. Now to get rid of 1120, I'm going to do a simple division problem here. Divide by negative 1020. Divide by negative, and here's where the negative is going to go away. So I've got negative 865 divided by 1020. And that equals 0.8480. And so now you should be thinking to yourself, oh, I got to do cosine to the -1 and type in these numbers. So if I hit second cosine, 0.8480, and that should be positive, I end up with 32 degrees. So that means, like it says here, this angle is 32 degrees. Okay, if you have to watch these steps again, please go ahead and do so. It doesn't matter whether you're solving for A, B, or C. If you're given the 3 sides, you're going to have to block out your 2 terms, solve the 2 terms, solve the 2 terms, subtract, and then divide every time, and then do the inverse of cosine. Okay. Let's go ahead and try this one. I have the answer here. It's 118, and I'm solving for C. Okay? So once again, I wish I could get rid of that, but I can't. So it's going to be c squared equals a squared plus b squared minus 2ac cosine of c. So I'm going to label my sides. This is little c, little a, little b, plug in my numbers. So this is 30 squared equals 17 squared plus 18 squared minus 2 times 17 times, this should be a b, times 18 cosine of c. Okay, so as you notice, I set up my 2 terms, and I solved for this part. I got 613, and then solved this one as negative 612 cosine c. So I subtracted 613 here, 287. I then divided by 612, and I got negative 0.46, found the cosine of that, cosine to the -1 of that, and ended up with 117.96 degrees, which rounds to 118. Okay, once again, your responsibility is numbers 1 through 12. There is no IXL for this, so make sure you do your best.